Well, here we are, 2022, and I've got my partner with me, Casey. It's been a while since we've sat down and just talked gibberish, so today we're going to do a little bit of that. I am very pleased to announce that we are starting a new series, and I'm going to call it American Courthouses. And it might be a little overly ambitious because what I plan on doing, Casey, over the next year is highlighting courthouses, especially through California, and kind of talking about, the historical context and whether we would want to be there handling cases, whether the public would want to be there. What are the things that we look for, and I think that this could be interesting for attorneys out there that are listening to our podcast because we're kind of like connoisseurs of the courthouses, right?
Right.
What I was thinking is that as seasoned attorneys, we do two things a lot. One of them is we talk about judges.
Right.
Right? If you go to the courthouses, Casey's down in the courthouse today waiting in the hallway, you're going to run into some of your friends, and the two of you are going to be talking about the temperament of the judge you're about to be in front of, right?
Definitely, yes.
And then the conversation will probably go, wait, by the way, have you been in this courthouse? That's what we do. And, I used to think that was kind of petty, but there's a real significance in that, right?
There is, absolutely. We always do that. And I think as attorneys, when you visit a courthouse, it feels good to go to a really beautiful courthouse. I think it makes you just feel like, wow, I'm doing this important job. I'm coming to this beautiful place. And sometimes we go to courthouses that aren't so nice, that haven't been updated. So we kind of have a range of experiences, I think, as attorneys.
Yeah, and I think that it does pass on to our clients too, particularly when we're talking about judges. We're able to tell them what the temperament's like, but also courthouses. And when you go there, be prepared. You're going to be parking over here. You're going to be entering through this door. You better dress, warm because they're, whatever it is. We kind of give them that guidance that's non-legal, but it's actually pretty valuable. Now, you've been practicing for how many years now? 18 years?
Close, about 14.
14 years? Okay. Well, I know that you've been through courthouses up and down the golden state of California.
I have, yes.
All the way up to Sacramento, right?
Sacramento, out in San Bernardino, just all over the place.
Hey, you went to Barstow?
I've been to Barstow. I thought, I should keep on going, go to Vegas. This was kind of the thought that I had. On my way back, I thought, maybe I should stop at this casino. Then I thought, no, I should just get back home.
It does tempt you when you're traveling around like that. You're like, maybe I could mix it a little work with pleasure here.
And I'm a total, LA girl. So when I went up to like somewhere in the mountains of San Bernardino, there was fog. I'm not used to driving in those conditions. It was scary.
I think that you've handled a case in San Diego before, right?
A long time ago, I did.
Yeah, because I remember it was like a child support case that you went down there.
That's right. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, and of course you've been in Orange County. You've been around a lot and stuff. So what I wanted to do is have you on our very first segment of this thing, because what I thought we could talk about today are the good and bad things about courthouse, the things that we like, that we could say, what, if we were to rate a courthouse from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or whatever it is, what are some of the factors that we would look at, right? As attorneys, we like to talk about factors. So what are some of the things that you like? If you go to a courthouse, you go, now that's something that's important to me.
I would say the number one thing that I like as an attorney when I'm working is somewhere to sit and review my file. So it's really nice to have an attorney conference room is a great feature. Or somewhere where I can sit with my client, possibly sit with opposing counsel and talk about the case. So important. I would say the number two thing that I really appreciate are computers, so that we can run DISO masters and child support calculations and print them out. Computers and printers that work. Those are just two things that help me in my practice. There are aesthetic things that I think I appreciate. Like I said, I'd like to go to a nice place, a beautiful building, and all of that.
Why? Tell me why.
I just think it's just it feels nice. I like it when the courts are updated. I like it when the courts keep up with technology. But we have both things. We have courthouses like in Orange County where you check in and you're given like a pager. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and you're waiting for your table. you know, your pager will beep when it's your turn. That's kind of nice because
Yeah.
you can sit out in the hallway, and not like, you know, other courts where you listen to 10 cases before you and you don't know if you're next, or you don't know if you're next, or you don't know if you're in 2 hours. So the entire time you're on the edge of your chair. So I think technology is a nice feature as well.
You know, it's
as a
funny that we're
vaccine.
having this conversation, you know, and we're squarely within the remote court appearance era. I mean, of course, it's the beginning, but it ain't going away. But we're still talking about when we go to courthouses, because I don't think that's going to ever go away either. So you got the attorney conference room, the computers. When you said that about the computers, I was thinking that what kind of an attorney do you think could be the best connoisseur? You know, the practice of law, you know, that's most likely to know all the courthouses. And I thought, that's family law attorneys. Because even in criminal cases, you know, when I was a prosecutor, prosecutors and defense attorneys typically go to the same beehive all the time, right? They're in one, and a lot of times they're in one courthouse, you know, just their whole
Right.
career and stuff. We're family law attorneys, we're everywhere, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, you know, what courthouses do we serve? But how do the courthouses serve us, you know, as well, right? You know, and certainly when we're talking about the computers and having conference rooms, that lets us do our work, right? Really important.
It lets us do our work, and there's nothing that you can do in the office I guess there's only so much you can do in the office. When you're there with opposing counsel, with the client, the information is coming, you know, on the spot live. You're not waiting to exchange letters or emails. And frankly, that's when everyone is the most motivated. Things happen, settlements happen. And if you have a place to go sit down and talk, and if the judge gives you that, I think it's great for cases. And I mean, it allows us to do what we do, which is negotiate and, you know, negotiate deals. And the courts, the judges certainly want us to do that. So I think having that available for the attorneys is great.
You know, the problem is that has never really, I think, been a high priority of our court systems that you and I practice in. I mean, when you think about it, it's in the interest of the court to make it comfortable for attorneys and their clients, and really, you know, give them the resources they need to get out there and settle. But how many cases have you and I been in these old, I don't want to say dilapidated, but these cement, you know, seats, hallways, you know, where, you know, you got people going back and forth, and you're trying to work out a settlement and trying to write things down, you know, and there's no desks or anything like that. I mean, that's kind of what the norm is, right?
Yeah, and that reminds me of something. I was recently in Chatsworth. First of all, Chatsworth is really far, but I was in there and I just had this feeling in this courtroom. I was like, this is just so, it just felt very ghostly. It had the, I guess, like the, kind of like when you go to the bank and they have the protection. It had one of those doors where you go in and it locks, so kind of like a little holding cell, and they allow you to go into the courtroom. And we were in there on a mandatory settlement conference. No one was there. And I was like, I've never felt the desire to take a picture of a courtroom, but today's the day. So it was definitely, you know, very ghostly, but I will say the desk where the bailiff sits, I swear the desk probably was from like the 1940s. It really was like the oldest piece of furniture that you have ever seen. I just think, you know, it kind of comes with the territory. I kind of, you know, the practice of law is an old profession, and, you know, it's governmental building. So sometimes you get, that's what you get sometimes.
Yeah, you know, boy, that's interesting that trial was there. One of the other things I don't like about some courthouses, even when they're modern, or especially when they're modern, is they've made them so institutionalized that when you go in there, there's no windows, you know, there's no rural like beauty, and there's no art. You're in these like sterile, almost like hospital hallways, you know, and stuff. And it's a creepy feeling rather than an inviting feeling, you know. And when I look at courthouses, I like to think about uplifting, right? Have you been into a courthouse where you walk in, you go, now, I remember, you know what, I remember shortly after you'd been practicing for maybe a couple of years, you and I were walking downtown. We went from the parking structure to the Stanley Moss Center, and you said to me, Don, when I was going to law school, I remember looking out the window and seeing attorneys walking like this,
yeah.
and I'm here. Because that's the thing, man, is, you know, you feel empowered, you feel like you've got a profession, you want to feel that way with
Yeah.
where you go too, right?
Yeah, you reminded me. I will tell you, I visited the LAX courthouse, which is over by LAX. It is, I don't know if you're familiar, brand new, modern
The airport courthouse.
airport courthouse, all windows. Every courtroom is super modern, beautiful. I remember going there. I was in college, didn't even think I was going to go to law school. And I remember I was like, you just felt like the air, the presence of the attorneys doing their job, the courtroom. And I shared that story with you. Everything was super modern. Everything was very nice. The infrastructure. And I remember telling you this. And then you commented. You said, "Yeah, but it has a reputation." You indicated that the sound was really bad. So if the judge was conferring with an attorney, the whole courtroom can hear what they're saying, including the jury. So one had to be careful there. But yeah, that was one of the times where I visited a courthouse and was like, "Oh, this is really just beautiful and modern." And I would compare that to, on the other side of it would be the Riverside Courthouse.
Which one?
Well, I think
The family law one?
I don't think it's the family law one, but it looks like a palace.
It's the white one.
And it is modeled after a palace in Paris.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes,
Wow.
and it is beautiful. It is a historic site. I mean, it's just an absolutely beautiful building in Riverside, and I know it's been there since like the 1900s.
Yeah, we will definitely be covering that courthouse without a doubt. I've walked through it several times. You and I both had some cases out there. I had a criminal case and the building is almost like attached to that. You know, the more modern building. And then the family law one is across the street. But when you talk about beauty, that's right there near the top. And and that's, I think, one of the things that's motivating me to do this is that once upon a time historically in America, the people put their money into these great buildings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these beautiful buildings that still exist by and large. Some of them are still in use, and I think that was so that people respected the system. I think it was so that people could go in with dignity and be treated decently, and also understand that this is serious, and give people that feeling.
Yeah.
Now there's some courthouses that we're in that have absolutely no architecture. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you went to Barstow, I'm sure you weren't impressed.
Yeah, I won't name any names, but you mentioned the no windows. There are lots of things like that, but it is. I think I do like those old courthouses. First of all, it's kind of nice to be reminded. I mean, you don't have to be in a nice building all of the time, but what I do like about those old courthouses are that things have been more modern, but you still see the old like mail chutes where they air deliver mail up, which I think is kind of cool. Also at Stanley Mosque, they've gotten rid of the payphones. But they still have all of the little wooden booths, which I think that's so cute.
Yeah.
Leave those there.
Yeah.
They took the doors off, but it would be kind of nice to sit in there, close the door, and call someone.
With your cell phone.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice. It'd be kind of nice to have cell service in that building as well. But I think that's a cute little thing to remind you of the past. And like they say, children now don't even know what public phones look like anymore.
Yeah.
So
when I was a young police officer, and I think that even when I was a young attorney, they were still using the phones at the courthouse. But what we used to be was like Grand Central Station. Those phone booths, every single one of them would be filled with people, and there'd be people standing in line, it was kind of cool. And you'd hear them talking, "Hey, Betty, give me such and such," and all these private attorneys talking.
I'll tell you, I recently was in a situation where, for some reason, like I want to say something was wrong with my phone, or it broke, or something happened. I needed to make a phone call. So I walked out and I go and I ask the bailiffs, like, is there a payphone anywhere? And they were like, no. So I was like, oh man, I need a public phone. When have I ever needed a public phone? Right now is the time.
It'd be cool. Maybe this is a suggestion for the Los Angeles County supervisors, but how about they put some electric sockets in those phone booths? So you could go and plug your phone,
Oh, yeah.
And you could use them in private and you could talk, which would be really cool. But they'd be thinking about us, wouldn't they? So one of the things that I wanted to add to your list, because you've got attorney conference room, computers, the beauty and the feeling when you go in there, technology. I think parking is another one, right? Wouldn't you say that parking is something that makes or breaks a courthouse?
Well, I would say that in my early years, when I was working at Stanley Mosque as a law student, I had to park in Chinatown because
Ooh, holy
they
cow.
didn't give me a parking spot. And then I walked in or I
Whoa.
took a shuttle in. So there was no parking.
That's like 4 or 5 blocks, in downtown LA.
I mean, I think I walked a couple times, carrying all my stuff.
Oh, my God.
But I will say that's when I ran into someone on the street and led me to, work in family law. And literally that walk from Chinatown is how I ended up in family law. That's another story. But then after that, when I started practicing law and I was working here with you and going to Stanley Mosque, every single time I parked across the street, I would have a ding on my car, or my mirror would be pushed in. I received a couple nasty notes. It was always high drama in the parking lot. So it's now we have the benefit of a reserved parking spot, which is really nice. And
but $25 or whatever it is to park down there, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have cash in your pocket, and you got to run for an ATM, and so there's problems with parking, right? In certain places.
There are problems. Some courthouses have made it really nice. I want to say, there are some that are not as expensive, and some that have free parking and street parking. Downtown LA is tough. It's expensive, and you may or may not get a spot.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about one particular courthouse that you've never been to, unless you're better traveled than I am. I mean, I don't think you've been here. So recently, that I went to a wedding. My niece got married in Missoula, Montana. She's a gal from Wheaton, Illinois, who is a outdoors lady, and she met her husband, who's also like that. And lo and behold, he's from Missoula, Montana. Any idea where that is?
It's in Montana.
Man, you got me. Okay. So here's what I didn't know. I mean, I was so excited about going to the Great Western, states like that because, you see it on TV and stuff. And I've been in LA, I've been in California and I've been in Chicago, but I've never really been anywhere in between, and stuff other than a couple of trips to Arizona and stuff. So I was really excited about getting here. And I got to tell you that it met my expectations because this particular town, Missoula, is the second largest town in Montana. And its whopping population, if I have this right, is 73,000 people.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like less than half the size here of Pasadena. That's the second largest, and you feel it when you go into the airport over there. They don't really have, any of the securities that we would have. The guy flips you your keys and goes, yeah, your rent-a-car's out there in the parking lot. You go out there and just park it back somewhere when you come back and stuff. I mean, it was really one of those things, and we flew in on one of those twin engine things, from Seattle. So they got this little cute airport, and the town is an old-fashioned American town, and it's got some things about the history of it. And one of them is that it is home to the University of Montana. They've got some decent football over there, I guess. And the other thing is my daughter and I and her fiance were looking for things to do before the wedding, and we decided that we were going to take a walk around, town and then maybe explore. And she saw somewhere that there was a ghost town nearby. And does that sound intriguing?
Yeah,
I mean, from a city slicker, I'm going to go to a ghost town, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to walk down like Matt Dillon or whatever, So we start following the signs and we get leading in, and we get past the signs and I look around and I'm like, this isn't a ghost town. This is an old Army installation, man. And how do I know? Because I was in the Army, and that's the parade field, and that's where the officers' quarters was, and that was the mess hall. It's not. We later found out it hasn't been in operation since the 40s, but it's still there. And I'm like, they led us to this? Are you kidding me? So we're in there, and we look in the distance, and I see this tower, and it looked like a guard tower, Casey, something like prison yard or something. I'm going, okay, we can't leave without kind of like walking and seeing what that is over there. And sure enough, when we walked over there, we found out that Missoula, Montana was the home to one of these camps where they put the Japanese in, during World War II.
An internment camp.
Internment camp, yeah. And they also, believe it or not, they had Europeans in internment camps there too, like Italian. I never heard of this before, but there were Italians there initially, and then there was the Japanese. And when you walk around town, nobody talks about it.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like every country or any place you go. You know, we don't want to talk about the past, right? In fact, we ran into a couple of ladies, and we're like, before I discovered this, I'm like, hey, so what is this place all about? And they were so proud of their little town. There's the Californians are moving out there. You know, now that we can work remote, there's no reason to live where you're at, and people are, but no mention of the internment camp, right? I mean, it was like,
yeah.
you know? So it was cool. And, you know, we were driving around, the weather was kind of rough. And one of the things that we spotted was an old, beautiful courthouse. And I put it in front of you right there. It's the Missoula County Courthouse. And I'm going to tell you that, you know, it just put some sunshine in my eyes there. I saw this beauty and I thought, my God, you know, how does this town, population 79,000 people, you know, a town that doesn't have that much going on, have a majestic courthouse like that, right? You know, you can see it, it's white. And let me tell you that, I think it's because of the cold climate. Every building downtown, pristine. You know what I mean? And these old buildings like you would see here in old town Pasadena, they look like they're brand new. I think because they're frozen inside or something, you know. But we walked around the courthouse and, you know, I crept up. It was on the weekend, so I couldn't go inside. But you look and you got beautiful paintings on the walls of the history of that region and stuff, the hunting, the Indians, you know, the people that served in the wars and stuff. I mean, you know, if you were going to that courthouse as an attorney, you'd feel pretty proud that you were in that profession, you know?
Absolutely.
So how can I rate this particular courthouse? Well, it's hard for me to do because I don't practice over there. I didn't go inside. I don't know if they have conference rooms and computers and things like that. But if I was going to give it a score for beauty, I mean, look at that. Would you give that a 10?
I would give that a 10. It's beautiful.
Okay. And as far as parking, it's in like an old town.
I was going to say, where's the parking?
Well, I don't know how busy it gets. I can't think that there's a college town. It's kind of a college town, so you might have some drunken students that wind up there every once in a while. But it seems like you could park anywhere in the town and get from point A to point B because it's really not that big. I mean, you know, and stuff. So I think that there's plenty of street parking. I don't know if there's any structures, but if I were to rate the county courthouse in Missoula, Montana, you guys get a 10 out of a 10. You better keep preserving that, otherwise you're going to be on my list, you know. And I just think that was beautiful, you know, and stuff. It reminded me of the very first courthouse that I ever stepped foot in as a professional. This was a young cop. I went into a courthouse in the suburbs of Chicago. It was one of these brownstone buildings. Mm-hmm. And you might find this crazy, but it was, you know, people were smoking in the hallways. I peeked into the courtroom before I went in there, and there was somebody smoking in the courtroom. The telephone things were going on and all this stuff, you know. But there was just this like awesome feeling of being there and stuff. And I pictured this place during the weekday, you know, folks like bustling in and out and getting, you know, getting justice done. An
important question here, Don. Do you think this courthouse in Missoula, Montana, has metal detectors like our courthouse in Los Angeles?
You know, I didn't see them. When I looked through that's a good question. When I looked through the window, a janitor actually came by and he was going to open the door for me, and I waved him off. You know, I wasn't exactly dressed like an attorney at the time, and I thought he might think. But anyways, I didn't see that in there. That's a really, really good question. The building itself was built, I think, in like 1908, in 1910, by a Spokane contractor, you know, and it was built on the previous county courthouse, like the history of a lot of American cities. That courthouse burned down and they built this one in stone and stuff. But I didn't see the security. I saw lots and lots of property around the building.
Right. I see
you know,
some beautiful buildings in the background.
Yeah. You know, and what's funny is that, you know, even in Missoula County, I think that is only one of the courthouses that's being used. You know, they can't possibly handle that many cases in a courthouse like this. So around the corner, there was another building that was marked courthouse. It looked like the DMV. So
well, this is every town or city needs its like nice, majestic, you know, building. So this may be it for this town. You know what?
And if they don't have one, they should build one.
They should build one.
You know?
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for your input today, experienced attorney. And hopefully you'll be able to join me on the next one. I got to tell you that recently, you know, I was out in Santa Barbara where my daughter lives, and I think our next one's going to be on that courthouse. Have you ever been in there?
I have not.
Oh, Casey, come on. Have you been around it?
I've been around it. I've seen it on the outside. I haven't been inside.
So next time you go to Santa Barbara, walk around the yard and stuff. And I'll save the rest for the next podcast. But let me tell you, that's a point of destination. And then I think that David and I are probably going to take a drive to some of the courthouses that aren't so great. We'll compare that, They'll go unnamed at this point.
Yeah, let's not name names.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having me, Don.
Okay, thank you.